Before we get into this episode, Mike and I want to thank you for being part of this community. We absolutely love what we do with this podcast, and we think it's important to bring you valuable content by exploring unconventional lifestyles, experiences, and perspectives. We are continually looking to improve the listening experience, and we want to bring in some of your favorite guests. We have a favor to ask, and that is if you can follow wherever you watch or listen so we can continue improving the show. We are so grateful for your support. Now let's get into it.
What's up, locals? It's Mike and Kenzie coming to you live from the 775. We are sitting down with an aspiring music producer, but more importantly, one of our favorite friends, best friends of all time, and favorite locals, Kevin Sadri.
Stop. I'm going to blush. No, I'm just kidding.
Kevin, thank you for joining us today.
Glad to be here.
How are you feeling today?
I'm great. I'm awesome. I did jiu-jitsu earlier, so I'm fired up.
Got that dog in you.
Good.
Got that dog in me. Woof, woof.
So real quick, we start every podcast with a segment called Failing Forward. Purpose of it is essentially going to share something you failed at this week and then how you're going to grow from that.
Failing forward for this week is I need to be more disciplined with my weight cuts. I have a jiu-jitsu tournament coming up Sunday, and I need to lose 12 pounds in a week. And sometimes I just eat the wrong foods that I shouldn't, and I need to be strict. I need to be very strict about it.
If you miss weight, are you not allowed to compete?
So it's a small tournament, and the weight class above me is very sparse. There's 2 people in it, so they'll probably allow me to move up.
Okay, that's good to know.
Yeah, I feel like I can relate to that because that also relates to my failing forward. I had 3 sandwiches in one day, which was a lot of bread for me.
Damn!
And I did not feel good at all, but I hadn't had a sandwich in just weeks. And so I was really craving some carbs and some bread. And then I ate 3 sandwiches and I was like, oh my God, no.
So I thought you were about to say 3 sandwiches in one sitting.
No.
And then I was going to
It was over the course of the day.
Okay. I was about to give you that.
It was like
Chris
my
Tucker.
breakfast, lunch, and dinner, essentially.
Damn!
Nice. Well, no more sandwiches, no more bread.
Yeah, no more bread for a little bit for me because that was just
Sexy
too
for
much.
summer.
Yeah.
Michael's heartbroken.
What's your failing forward?
Mine is not as silly. It's also not as serious. I just was slacking on the comedy front. I didn't write any jokes this week. I wrote down some ideas, but I didn't do shit about it. So can't really get better if you don't show up to work. Let's get down to the reason why we're actually here. Okay. We just watched a documentary called Hell Camp, and then it's Teen Nightmare. But realistically, it's this wilderness camp or series of camps. We watched this documentary. These kids get kidnapped, taken away, and they're supposed to be delinquent children, and they come back as these buttoned up ideal children, right? That was kind of the gist of the documentary.
I don't know if they're necessarily buttoned up, but they come back
Well, that's the purpose
as just
of it.
good kids. They love their parents. They're not doing any, rascal shit.
Okay. But they're
That's how I understood it.
essentially being abducted. Their parents are paying for it. They get sent to this wilderness camp, and it's for delinquent children for them to turn their act around. That was the documentary we just watched. You have a very similar experience, do you not?
I do.
Would you like to talk about that?
Yeah, so it's important to segment it into 3 different segments. So this documentary, Hell Camp, they focus mostly on segment 1. Segment 1 is a wilderness therapy program. There's many wilderness therapy programs. Kids are usually sent away anywhere from 6 to 12 weeks, sometimes even longer, sometimes shorter. And that's just basically where you are out in the woods, hiking all the time, no modern amenities, hundreds of miles from any civilization. And then I guess we don't have to segment it into 3. We could segment it into 2. So there's that, and then there's residential treatment center boarding schools, which are...
So you went to both?
Yes.
Okay.
So then there's the boarding schools, which are obviously in a building. It's much more civilized. a lot more normal. It's not as intense. But I think it's probably best we start with the wilderness therapy programs.
First of all, did you know it was coming?
No. So real quick,
Mhm.
the term that everyone all the kids used was goon. When you get gooned, it's when your parents basically hire kidnappers, which are actually companies. There's companies that parents can hire to basically kidnap their kids legally,
Mhm.
because the parents don't want to do it. This 99% of the time happens in the middle of the night. The kids will be woken up at 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning, and like completely disoriented, and they're told to basically just get dressed and leave immediately. They don't pack anything. Um, my dad, he has a huge soft spot for me, so he waited until the morning. He was like, "No, I'm not going to do that. Like, we're going to wait till he wakes up and we can tell him what's going on." Um, and
Did he give you any reasoning for it, or was he just laying down what was going to happen next?
No, the one I went to, Second Nature Cascades,
Hmm.
which is no longer. It's still in operation, but they changed the name. It's there's a different name for it, but it's in Bend, Oregon.
Okay.
Um, and one of the first things you do when you go to this place is you read your accountability letter, which is one of the most painful things I had to do. It was awful.
What is an accountability letter?
It's basically your parents write you a letter of all the ways that you hurt them and why they sent you away, and you have to read it in front of the staff. You all get in a circle and you have to read it in front of the staff and all the other kids that are there. Um, and just to clarify, the one I went to, uh, the group of there's many different. So this is a huge wilderness area. So
Hmm.
there's many different groups under that company. So, but each group is anywhere from like 3 to 12 kids. Um, and since it's such a large wilderness area that everyone's hiking in, the company does their best to make sure that none of the groups interact
They don't intersect.
or even see each other.
Were you aware that there were other groups
Yes,
at the
yeah,
time?
yeah. There's I don't know how many groups. I would estimate maybe 10, 15 different groups in different areas.
Hmm.
Um, but they coordinate it so you never interact with the other groups.
Do you remember what was in your accountability letter?
I still have it actually.
Really?
Yeah.
Do
Um,
you keep that as like a personal trophy, or what is the reason behind that? Is it a memoir almost?
no, I think I keep it because my dad is very not good with. My dad's a really business savvy guy.
Hmm.
When he was younger, he was very aggressive, strong man, like business savvy as fuck. But his hugest weakness is I not to talk shit on him because he's great in a lot of ways, but he has the emotional maturity and of like a kid.
Hmm.
And so this letter was the closest thing to him actually being real. And I don't even think he actually wrote it. I think he dictated it to my older sister who wrote
Okay.
it for him.
It wasn't in broken English.
Yeah, but it's still it's his best. It was his best effort, you know. So I was, and also I don't know I don't know why I keep it. Yeah,
Hmm.
but that was one of the worst parts is because you read it in front of everybody and then you start crying, and you're reading it in front of everyone, and it's not too bad because all the other kids that there had to do the exact same thing.
So everybody's kind of on an equal playing field there of
Yeah,
like, okay, we've aired out the reason we're here.
yeah.
And can I ask what those reasons were for you? And like, was there a common theme amongst other kids that were there of why their parents were sending them to this camp? Like, what was the theme?
The theme was there's a lot of drugs, um, a lot of rebelliousness, a lot of just like fuck you guys, like I don't care that you're my parents, like you guys are making all these arbitrary rules, like I'm gonna do what I want to do.
Was that the reason why you got sent away?
Yeah, well, mainly I got sent away because my dad is super anti-drug, so I smoked weed, and then did some other shit like uh, I drank, I used to abuse cough syrup, um, which is actually low key underrated,
Oh my gosh.
but I haven't done that. But the thing is like something about drugs. There's like a tolerance. Some drugs have a permanent tolerance that happens very quickly, and this happened with the Robitussin because I did it no more than 15 times before I got sent away.
Ain't no fussing
No
when you're
more than
sipping
15
tussin'.
times?
Yeah,
I
Hold
mean,
on.
that is a
There ain't no fussing when you're sipping tussin'.
yeah.
There's not.
No fuss.
But you built up like a permatolerance?
Yes, because I remember at the second boarding school I went to, uh, we'll get way into that, but me and my friend, my good friend, we'll just call him Jay. I don't know if we want to.
Mhm.
We won't air him out. Yeah.
But yeah, he was my best friend there. But me and Jay, we got some Robitussin and we drank it, and it just didn't hit. Like I definitely felt intoxicated, but it was not fun at all. And I was like, yeah, I'm never gonna do this again.
And can I ask how old you were when you were doing drugs and then when you got sent to your first camp?
I think 14, 15,
Okay.
around that age.
And that's when you got sent to the camp as well?
Yeah,
Okay.
there were about like 6, 7 kids in my group. How it worked was we would they wouldn't tell you what time it was. They wouldn't tell you what day it was. Um, basically, we had our backpack with all our survival gear in it, our food, our tent, and everything. And they wouldn't tell us what day we were hiking. We would usually set up camp in. We would usually set up camp for a day or two, sometimes one day, sometimes 3 days, and then all of a sudden we'd wake up one day and they'd be like, "Pack up, we're hiking today," and then but they would never tell us how long the hike was. Some hikes were as short as like 3 miles. I think the longest hike we did was probably 10 miles. And with a backpack, those backpacks were heavy. It was a lot. I lost a bunch of weight there.
Did you go as a fat kid and came back skinny?
Oh yeah, oh yeah. And the one thing I do want to emphasize is that like after that documentary, anyone listening, if they've seen that documentary, a lot of fucked up shit in that documentary.
Mm-hmm.
The place I went to wasn't easy, but it was not abusive.
One of the questions I had was, did you witness any abuse?
Zero.
Experience any either?
No abuse. All the staff were kind. The main therapist, Griff,
Mm-hmm.
really nice guy.
Take us through your experience there. So you don't get kidnapped in the middle of the night. Your dad waits until the morning. You leave. What's the ride there like? Or are you just
So
wondering
awkward.
what the fuck's going on?
Although they did get me not Jack. They got me McDonald's.
Okay.
But I want to be clear. So these goons,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of them are apparently ex-military, big, scary fucking dudes. I'm pretty sure my dad specifically chose nice-looking people. He chose a couple, like a very nice couple,
Mm-hmm.
like people that like if I were the same size as I am now, I would kick both their asses. Like they were just nice people, like kind people. Whereas normally these people who kidnap the kids are like ex-military, tough, hard
Drill
ass,
sergeant
not
type.
nice people.
Yeah. So you have this awkward ride. How long is the drive?
Oh, this is where it gets crazy. So the drive, it's in Bend, Oregon, and I was in right across the bridge from Portland, Oregon.
Mhm.
So drive 5 minutes from Vancouver, Washington. You're in Portland, Oregon. The drive I think was like 2 hours or so. But here's the thing: we get there. I check in. I go get a medical evaluation, just make sure nothing's wrong. And then this is something that happens at all rehabs and any places like this. And people say it's abuse, but it's not. They have you get completely naked and you have to squat and cough.
If you're not keystering anything.
Yeah, and the thing. So at Second Nature, where I went, I had to get completely naked and squat and cough, but no one watched me do it. Like they had the door cracked open, but the staff member who was in charge of making sure all that went down
Mhm.
turned away. Like he's not. He
So
was.
when
So
that
then how
tussin
would they-
bottle started dropping down, you could keep.
But yeah, how would they know if they weren't looking at you?
I think it depends. I think that I showed that I demonstrated that I was completely pissed at my parents and I was like, fuck my parents. But I understood they were just doing their job and they understood that I think they got the vibe from me that I wasn't going to be trouble. And so they'd rather not see a naked kid, you know?
Yeah. That
When I
makes
went to rehab recently though, actually, had to get fully naked, squat and cough. And the guy was looking the whole time.
Oh gosh. Yeah,
Well,
that's
it makes sense
uncomfortable.
because you're checking yourself in for something, and they're like, "Okay, let's make sure you're actually going to do what you're here for."
Yeah.
You don't want to bring anything into rehab.
Yeah. But here's the crazy part. So Bend, Oregon is a small town. So, we go to the Second Nature building and we get all that shit done. They give me my backpack, they give me my hiking boots, and then they throw everything in the truck. I get in the truck. So we drive. I remember we get to a dirt road, like past the city. We get to a dirt road, no buildings around, and we drive a good 2 to 3 hours down this dirt road, not seeing a single sign of civilization from there. And that's just to, part of that is just to tell you you're not going to escape. There's no way to run.
Yeah, don't run away, you'll die.
Yeah.
Is essentially what they're reinforcing there.
And I did ask, kids have tried to run and they always get caught.
Yeah.
There's no one has ever escaped from that place.
Somebody gone missing from that place?
As far as I know, no.
Okay, because I've always wondered that too. If they take you hours away from civilization, and as a kid, maybe you don't process that. You're like, there's probably a town nearby if I just keep going.
Yeah.
I've
So-
always wondered that.
What I'm getting from all of this is like they're creating a fear-based mentality within the kids so that you guys don't run away, so that you guys know who the authority figures are and kind of differentiate like a power dynamic. That's what it sounds
Maybe.
like. I don't know.
Maybe. And everyone has a different perspective on it. My perspective at that point was fuck my parents. I hate my parents. My mom's a bitch. I don't like my dad. My dad's emotionally ignorant and stupid. But these people that I'm being sent to, I would much rather not get sent here. But everyone I've interacted with so far at this place is kind and means well. And
Let me ask
so
you,
I was never mad at anyone there.
when you met other kids there, and they're all around the same age, right?
Yeah.
I imagine. Do you feel like any of those kids deserved to be there?
None of the kids there were psychopathic murderers. None of
Make sure
them
this is close enough too.
None of them necessarily needed to be there. I don't think anyone did. I think that it's a situation of parents not knowing how to deal with their children, and it's also a situation partially of parents maybe not recognizing that their kids are individuals and not extensions of them.
While we were watching the documentary, we saw that there was basically like a multi-step process for these kids to go through. And during this process, we saw that a lot of the kids were actually grateful that they were in the camp. And we heard some testimonials from them saying, I think every kid should come to this camp. It's life-changing. Like, this is totally going to change who I am as a person. So then I looked at you and you were like, there is a multi-step process, but I don't think hiking 500 miles is what we ended up doing, because that seems like very extreme. So what did you guys do? Like, can you bring us through that multi-step process of the camp?
Yeah, it's been a while, so I don't remember details.
That's okay.
I remember a lot of it. I don't remember the finer details. For example, I don't remember how many group therapy sessions there was a week.
Yeah.
But I remember there was a level system. You start at level 1, and then if you learn certain skills, you get more privileges and such. A huge part of this whole thing was learning how to bust a fire, which is how to make a fire from scratch using sagebrush.
Mm-hmm.
I still have all my sagebrush shit. Basically, it involves, imagine a bow and arrow. You take a bow. And also all the wood you use has to be sage, because the friction of rubbing sage together will create a fire, will create a spark, which then you put into the nest and then you blow on it. It's very hard. It took some kids like a week. It took me like 4 or 5 weeks.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Yeah, but basically you have a bow, you thread a pencil shape, piece of sage that's in the shape of a pencil, and you thread that into the bow, and then you take a rock where you can hold down the spindle, which is what you call the piece of wood.
Mm-hmm.
And then you put the other end onto a block of sage, and you rub back and forth with the bow to create friction until a spark happens. And that was a huge part of it. Leveling up, but we had group therapy sessions. We did individual therapy sessions. There was a lot of hiking, a fuckload of hiking.
Like
So
500 miles worth of hiking, or
not even close. So I'm trying to think. The longest hike I ever did was probably 10 miles.
okay.
And we would hike. Let's say max we would hike 4 times a week, which I don't think is accurate. But let's say 4 times a week, and let's average the hikes out at 6 miles. So that's 4 times 6
24.
times 6 for 6 weeks. Although I wouldn't discount anything they said because their shit was way more intense than my shit. Like their shit was borderline abusive. My shit was hard as fuck, not abusive. And I do agree that it is life changing. We spend all our time, on our phones, living in houses disconnected from nature, and it's really nice to have AC and to be able to take showers and remain clean and cook your own food and wash dishes so that you don't live in a hovel. But when you live outdoors for a month or more, you become so in tune with nature. It's a Zen thing. It makes you happier. It makes you feel like how you're meant to live. And it's a beautiful thing. And it really resets all the drama that might have been brewing in your head for years. Thoughts about status, thoughts about what if that person doesn't like me. All the bullshit gets cut away because you're at one with nature. And it's a beautiful thing.
How long do most kids stay there?
8 to 12 weeks. I was there 6 weeks because my dad visited right before 6 weeks, right before the 6 week mark.
Mm-hmm.
And he didn't realize where he sent me. He was like, I thought this was some kind of resort. You guys are charging me out the ass for this. And then he, literally the next day, I got pulled out. And at that point, I was actually kind of pissed because I was like, I'm actually getting so much out of this.
Right.
But it is hard. It's very hard, but worthwhile.
So your dad came, and we saw a scene in the documentary where a dad goes to visit his kid, and the kid is weeping and hugging his dad like so tight, and then you can just see the dad like kind of patting his son. It looked like he was disconnected from his son. So when your dad came to visit, what were the feelings that you had when you saw your dad?
Real quick before I get to that,
Okay.
wasn't that the dad you're talking about before? Wasn't that the same dad that later on they're talking? He was like, I probably should have left you there.
Yeah.
Yeah, that shit pissed me off. Like no wonder that kid had to go to some fucking therapy camp like that.
Yeah.
Because he has a fucked up dad like that. But my dad's not good with emotions. And so he was definitely very glad to see me. But I mean, it's been so long. I still have a picture of me just covered in dirt, still a little chunky. I'm still a little chunky, covered in dirt. And I'm in these like wilderness clothes that are just not stylish at all.
Mm-hmm.
And like it's raining out, and my dad is like in this coat, and I still have that picture somewhere. I don't know where it
Is
is.
he like in nice clothes?
Not at all.
Oh, no. Oh, okay.
No.
But did you like hug him? Like, were you happy to see him, or did you have resentment at that time? Like, what?
It's hard to remember. I was kind of, at that point, I always felt uncomfortable around my dad because like my dad's old. And he's from Iran. So there's such a conversational disconnect that me and my dad, I don't think will ever could be homies in that sense.
Yeah.
Like we can be father and son and stuff, but I'm never going to be like, what's good, dad? Like, how's life? Yeah, man, I hooked up with this girl who was sick. Like, me and my dad are never going to have that kind of relationship,
Yeah.
The meals out there, they give you, like, I think weekly they would give you like a small package of different snack foods that you can eat so that you don't starve. Like they would give us a can of tuna, which I always traded away because I hate tuna.
Mm-hmm.
Do you still hate tuna?
Yeah, well, canned tuna.
Okay.
So I would trade that away. They would give you little snacks, like some jerky, this or that, trail mix, cheese. Oh yeah, one time this was the craziest shit. I wanted to melt cheese, and so I took a slice of cheese and put it on a hot rock and tried to get some melted cheese.
No.
It didn't work. It did not work at all.
Just rocked up your cheese.
Yeah.
No, I'm trying to think of what happened. It kind of like started to. It did not melt, but it became mushy. It was almost gross.
Yeah, I can imagine that it's probably hard to melt cheese out in the wilderness.
Yeah.
If it's not like over a fire. Like if you have it in like maybe a hamburger bun or something and you're
Yeah.
putting it over a fire, but on a rock, it's not a stove.
Yeah. Did not work.
So while you were at the camp, because you said you did individual therapy sessions and group therapy sessions, were they trying, when they did these therapy sessions with you, like was it licensed therapists?
Yeah.
Okay. What were they trying to like teach you, I guess, at that time? Like were they, because I feel like a huge part of this is the lack of parenting, the lack of knowing how to parent your own child. So what were they making it out to seem like this is your fault that you're here?
No.
Okay.
No.
So what was the teachings that they had for you in therapy?
It's been so long, but so it's hard to remember. But I think a lot of it was like after, because at first you're desperate to, like, you're writing your parents letters like, please, I'll do anything, like get me out of here, and then Griff, the therapist, I think once I got past that point, he was like, hey, like you're here, I know it sucks, but like, were you really happy before? What do you want to take It was more about like, what do you want to take responsibility for in the future to enable yourself to be happy, whether or not your parents are ideal or how you want them to be. It didn't feel like a place where all the staff and therapists are on your parents' side and telling you you're a piece of shit. It was never like
Okay.
that.
That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How long did it take for you to accept that like you're not going home?
I think like a week or two. And that was up to that point in my life, that was the hardest thing I'd ever experienced.
Mm-hmm.
It was awful. And one really strange thing, the dreams were the most vivid dreams I've ever had in my life. That before that and since then, it was borderline psychedelic.
Mm-hmm.
And the other kids I talked to said the same thing. So I think it has something to do with being like hundreds of miles from light pollution, cities, cell phone towers, anything.
High stress.
Yeah, like the dreams were insane. Also, we were right near a military base. One of the coolest things was watching like military fighter jets, like literally so low, like flying to. There was one time it flew directly over us.
Oh my gosh.
I want to say it was about 2 to 3 stories above us, like building wise.
Damn.
And
That's so
loud.
close.
it was so close.
Like earth shattering loud.
It blew my mind, dude. I saw it go over us, and I was like, "Holy shit!" That was sick.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, that's wild. Like, but how are you near a military base if you were out in the middle of nowhere?
Well, a lot of the military bases are
Or also out in the middle of nowhere?
Very
Just
far.
very remote. I guess that would be good to at least have some type of like resource nearby in case anything happened too.
Mhm. And there were girls, so there were guys and girls. So there were lots of different. So company was second nature. Each group of campers was 6 to 12, or it could be as low as maybe 3 probably, but it could go up to as high as like 12, maybe 13. And there were a bunch of these groups. There were women only groups, there were men only groups. And I remember we used to joke about us guys, we used to joke about it because we were like, partially we wanted to see the girls,
Mm-hmm.
but also we were like, dude, they're probably hairy as fuck.
Oh my god.
Just to give you something not to look forward to.
Yeah.
You're like, don't worry, we're not missing anything.
Well, the
Um,
thing that I found kind of disturbing from the documentary is that the girls that were in that specific camp, there was no proper hygiene for like when they got their period. And they were out there for, they said 52 days, but it could be longer if there was bad behavior. Well, you're getting your period probably twice in that time. So it's like, what the heck are you doing out in nature? Like, I hope that they at least took care of the girls in that way so that they could like have, I don't know, like tampons or something.
Or they're just
I mean, you
frankly-
probably didn't know because you weren't. I mean,
I
unless,
think so just based on how kindly the staff and the company were, I think that I went to, and nowadays, after all the bullshit that they had to deal with, like in the 70s and 80s and 90s and early 2000s, I'm pretty certain that that's something they take care of now.
yeah,
Maybe not.
yeah.
That definitely was an issue back then, though. Yeah, for
Yeah,
sure.
I can imagine. And the counselors, were they mostly male or were there females?
So I don't know. So I think the counselor, so my counselor Griff, he only came to our group. I don't know if he went to all the groups or if each group had different ones or if Griff was assigned to ours and one other. And then I don't know how that all worked, but I only ever
Kinda
met Griff.
shifted.
So you were in the all male group.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, I just wonder if there was any female counselors back then because it seemed like in the documentary there was only male figures
Hmm.
during the entire time. And when you said that there was like big military burly kind of men, I just wonder if that was like the most of the characters that were taking care of the kids.
And to be clear, those guys are not related to Second Nature or any of these wilderness camps. That's a whole nother company. Their job is to kidnap the kids,
Wait a second.
and then they pass them off to Second Nature and other things.
How does that become a business?
I don't know. I
Like-
think maybe they
Legally kidnapping kids. That seems insane to me.
kids
Okay,
don't really have
sharks.
rights.
Sharks, I have a business proposition, okay? We're a company where parents pay for us to kidnap their children. All I'm asking for is a $100,000 investment.
Oh, gosh.
Like,
I got you.
how did that fly?
My only we could look it up, but my only assumption is that they do other things besides that.
They would have to. Professional kidnapping network?
I mean, but with how much we're seeing that they paid, like in 1989, one of the girls that had to go to the camp, she said that her mom paid over 16,000, and that was in 1989. So I can't even imagine what your parents paid because
I
you
don't
went to
know.
camp at what, like 2012 or 2011, probably, if you were 13, 14.
No, because 2011 was when Skyrim came out, and I was like,
And you
I was
had
obsessed with that.
access.
I think 2012.
2012, yeah.
Oh, so you played Skyrim beforehand.
Yeah, I know, because dude, Skyrim came out 11, 11, 11.
Kevin,
What?
I can't believe that you were that age. You got to experience Skyrim and then everything was ripped away. You're going
Yeah.
out into nature.
Yeah,
How has that affected you as a person?
not being able to play Skyrim.
No, I like,
Heartbreaking.
I mean,
It made me
just-
want to. What were you saying?
Well, I think like that question, like how has it affected you? Because obviously you said like it changed your life.
Life changing. I was fucking completely different pre Second Nature, and like unrecognizable, and so much shit had to go down for me, and I had to do so much shit to like and focus on so much shit to like in high school become normal so I could actually fit in, and then as an adult like learn how to like be a man and pursue what I want, you know? Whereas I think Second Nature was the catalyst that started me along that path of independence. And I don't actually know what it would be like if I never went there, so I'm very thankful I went there.
Mhm. It's a double-edged sword. You get good and bad out of it.
Mhm.
How do you think it's affected you positively versus negatively? Like, what would you say the drawbacks were, and then what did you gain from it? Because
I think
it's impacted you.
I think it only affected me positively, actually. Gave me a huge appreciation for nature and how living in the cycle of nature, of being outdoors, is how we're meant to live. And that doesn't mean we can't live in houses and live how we live now. But depression and anxiety just don't exist when you're walking and surviving and hunting and gathering and all that shit. Because you're living, you know, you're actually living.
You're focused on surviving.
Whereas nowadays, I can pull out my phone and get on TikTok and waste a week, and then I'm like, I have anxiety and depression now, you know?
Totally.
That is also populated, I feel like, in your life too, is that you're no stranger to anxiety or depression even after that event. Right?
Oh yeah, Second Nature didn't cure that. And this is really hard to wrap anyone's head around, if it's not about you, then it's not a problem. You know what I mean?
I do. I feel like my greatest misery comes when I hyperfixate on myself. How many boarding schools did you go to?
2. So it's an all-male boarding school. If I remember correctly, the maximum students were like 20 to 25 at one time. It's for a boarding school for troubled youth. a lot of kids there, not a lot, but there were kids there that were claiming they were being abused and it's unfair, yada yada. Bunch of whiny bitches, in my opinion. Because to be fair, I understand it. It's tough, like maybe you had a girlfriend at home you miss and you want to go home, and it is unfair that your parents just have the power to send you away. But like you're there, I think you should make the most of it. The good thing about Gateway was it's expensive, and so during the school week you have to do school. And the school's pretty easy, but every weekend a whole new set of staff comes in. What they were called the weekend staff, and during the summer you would go on adventures. You would go rock climbing outdoors, rappelling down slot canyons, whitewater rafting, all this shit. Weekends,
Pretty sweet.
the weekend staff were great. And then in the winter, Saturday and Sunday, every single Saturday and Sunday, we would go snowboarding at canyons, which is the dopest resort ever. Which leads to a really funny story. One of the best weekend staff was named Kevin. He actually got fired because we left to go skiing, and then after 5 minutes, someone forgot something, so we had to go back. And so we go back, and so Gateway Academy, it's this big building, huge grass field in front of it, and then parking lot. And this grass field is it's 1/3 the size of a football field.
Okay.
And so we get back, and Kevin's driving this big old Toyota Tundra, and he just starts drifting along the grass, completely destroys the lawn.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I can.
And so he gets fired for that, which I was pissed about because he was by far the coolest staff we had.
You guys want to see something cool? Let me earn the respect of these kids.
Yeah.
That's literally him, bro. He was like, "You guys want to see something cool?" and then next weekend he wasn't there, and we all knew he got fired.
Everybody was bummed. We were like, man, now we have to repair the grass too.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. So it sounds like the boarding school was actually like a really positive experience for you.
Totally, yeah. Yeah, very, very positive for me. One of the hugest things I learned from Second Nature was, because I was unhappy for like 5 years. From 9 or 10 until like 15, I was just deeply depressed, but I didn't know it because I was like, oh, that's just how life is. And then I went to Second Nature and like totally eye-opening. I was like, wait, like I don't have to actually like that's not actually what life's about. And then my dad pulled me out because he hated it. And then I went back and lived in Washington for a few months during the summer. And then I hated it some more. And I was like, wow, this shit sucks. And so I was like, Dad, I want to go to because they recommend you're supposed to go to boarding schools after wilderness. And so I went.
Structure.
Yeah. And so finally, like, he agreed to send me. And so I went to a place in southern Utah, like 3 hours away, which is like 2 hours from Vegas. And it's right near Zion National Park. Really beautiful area. And that place was called Mountain Springs Preparatory Academy. Very small boarding school, but there were girls there. So there's a lot of crazy stories around that. In this industry, beyond this industry, I think parents in general, they think that the kid is the problem.
Parents need to be accountable as well. Kids go to this wilderness camp and they are supposedly coming back cured. They come and they learn so much about themselves. They're coming back with like knowledge of I have to take accountability for what I'm responsible for. But yet they come back to a home where parents are still not accountable.
Precisely.
And so then you come back to a home that's still broken. You come back to a home that's still unsafe. You come back to a home where there's still a lack of support and love. So you're sent away to learn all of this knowledge, but then you come back and the parents don't have any training. The parents don't have any, the parents just continue to act how they act when really it's probably the root of the problem is how they treated the child in the first place. Like, how do you feel like parenting should be? Do you think that we should just send our kids away to boarding school and wilderness camp?
No.
Okay.
So I think that most parents, most kids that I kept in contact with, and even some that I just heard rumors about after they left boarding school, went right back to whatever they were doing, maybe slightly less badly, but a lot of them still do drugs. I did way worse drugs after.
Right.
But a lot of what it comes down to is parents think that their kids are an extension of them, and they experience fear thinking their kids are going to end up a certain way. And I think the best thing to do is to let your kid make mistakes. Don't fear for your kid, to an extent.
Yeah.
like if your kid comes home and he's like, Dad, can you help me? Can you tie this tourniquet around my arm so I can inject this heroin? Maybe put a stop to it. But like, but
Timmy, did you test it for fentanyl?
yeah. But I think a lot of parents infantilize their kids. The classic, well, why should I do that? Because I said so. Nothing pisses me off more than that.
One of the grossest forms of parenting that I've experienced personally is that extension of self, of you are a representative of our family. So when you go out there on the street and you go be a piece of shit, you're reflecting poorly on my parenting, and I won't allow that. And that doesn't allow the child to, number one, make mistakes, but number two, it immediately creates this animosity of like, I'm my own individual. I'm 14 or 15. This is my life. You've had an entire lifetime to make decisions. Why do I have to represent you? That's your job. And that was always something that I had to struggle with my parents, because they were telling me I was a representative of them. And I'm like, sometimes, yeah, but other times, like, no, let me go run wild. And if I fuck up, that's on me. And they have to deal with the consequences too. That part I didn't connect until later in life. But
Yeah.
now it's, once again, I no longer feel like a representative of my parents. I'm representing me. Do you feel like there is a way to do wilderness camp right?
Well, there's the thing called Outward Bound. Have you heard of it?
Mm-mm.
It's literally what I did, but voluntary. Lots of kids like to do it. It's not ideal. Going to boarding school or wilderness camp, it's not ideal. If you want a successful kid, like you want them to go to Harvard, send them to high-end boarding schools on the East Coast, because those aren't troubled boarding schools. Those are like college preparatory boarding schools that people go there and then they go to Yale. You know what I mean? But if you have to, like, I guess like a wilderness camp can be good, and then a boarding school, it certainly helped me a lot.
So it can be done correctly. But if you want your kid to marry into like the COO of Chase Bank, send him to Connecticut for boarding school.
Precisely.
Or New Hampshire, probably.
Do you have advice for either someone like your younger self, like someone who was dealing with trouble or drugs or whatever it is? Do you have advice for like a kid like that?
For a parent, go to therapy. It's probably you, not your kid. I mean, your kid also has a problem, but where do you get it from? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, and then for a kid, this is some crazy ass advice. But start a meditation habit. And I don't think anyone's ever going to listen to that because I wouldn't have. But it's probably the one thing. It's probably the most crucial thing to long-term happiness and letting go of resentments and discordant topics in your life.
Yeah, I love that. So we have a closing tradition on this podcast. Our last guest, Lucas Brassi, wanted to leave you a question. And I believe that question was, what is your next goal that you're going after?
My next goal is I need to start making songs quickly, because I'm like literally 99%. I'm 90% of the way to making songs that are show worthy, DJ worthy, in the sense that I could play them at Dead Ringer or at any club, and people wouldn't be like, "Who the fuck made this? This is weird." Like it would fit in. Now I need to start doing that. I need to keep making songs like that till I have like 15, 20, and then I can literally just like start opening up for big acts and like go from there.
Yeah, that's amazing. Do you have a question that you would like to ask our next guest?
What is your biggest dream in life?
I like it. What is your biggest dream in life? Well, Kevin, as always, it is a pleasure to chat with you, hang with you, and thank you so much for being vulnerable and sharing your experience, because it's very unique, extremely unconventional, and clearly it's impacted you into the person that you are today, who we love. So thank you so much for coming on.
Of course.
It was tremendous. Let's do it again.
Tremendous.
We're going to do it again in 24. All right.
Be better.